Chapter 21. Monsoon. David left the airport, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He was eager to see the progress that had been made in the village of shadows. As he stepped out of the airport, he looked around for a suitable mode of transportation. He finally decided to hire a ride and approached a group of drivers who were waiting outside. After a brief negotiation, they settled on a sturdy four-wheel drive vehicle and climbed inside. However, as they drove, the driver became increasingly alarmed about the possibility of getting caught in the monsoon rains. He expressed his concern and urged them to reconsider their journey. The heavy rains would make the roads impassable, and the danger of flash floods and landslides was high. David and the team were determined to reach their destination, and after much discussion, they decided to proceed with caution. As they drove, David struck up conversation with the new team of teachers and translators. They talked about their experiences and what brought them to this remote corner of the world. As they chatted, they took in the stunning views of the surrounding mountains. The sky was overcast, but at this point, the rain had not yet begun to fall. The only evidence of the approaching storm was the gathering clouds that filled the sky, casting a dreary gloom over the landscape. Despite the impending weather, David and the teachers remained in good spirits, eager to reach their destination and begin their work. The journey was long and bumpy, and they were constantly jolted as the driver navigated the rough terrain. As the vehicle approached the end of the road, the sky turned dark and the first of the deep, resounding heavy raindrops began to land on the windscreen. The driver quickly pulled over, turning to face the group with a look of concern. "I take you no more. Monsoon rain very bad," he warned. The sound of the rain became louder as it pelted against the roof of the car, making it difficult to hear each other. David looked out the window at the dense jungle ahead, and then back at the driver. "We must get to the village, no matter the weather," he said resolutely. The driver shook his head. "You go back with me. Go later." David sighed, knowing that time was of the essence. The new team of teachers and translators needed to reach the village as soon as possible, and the monsoon rains would only worsen. It could be days, even weeks, before the monsoon season ended. With a determined look in his eyes, he pulled out a flimsy cheap raincoat and stepped out of the car and into the rain. He motioned for the others to follow. David and the team of Bible teachers and translators followed suit, looking up at the darkening skies overhead. The rain was continually falling more heavily now, large drops pattering against the leaves of the dense jungle foliage surrounding them. They adjusted their backpacks and began to make their way through the jungle, with David leading the way. The rain eased off to just a gentle drizzle, but as they walked deeper into the jungle, the rain intensified once more. The sound of the rain grew louder, with drops hitting the leaves above them, creating a din that filled the jungle. The ground beneath their feet became soft and slippery, making it difficult to keep their footing. David and the team had to slow their pace and move carefully, trying not to slip on the rain-slick mud. David glanced over his shoulder at the team, checking that they were all doing okay. They were all looking a little weary, but they pressed on, determined to reach their destination. Drenching rain was starting to come down in sheets now. They pushed through the dense foliage, with David using his machete to hack a path through the undergrowth. Despite the difficulties, the team remained in high spirits, chatting and joking amongst themselves. They were here to help spread the gospel to the remote tribes, and they were eager to get to work. David was especially pleased to have them with him. He had been feeling lonely this time since he had left Susan this time, and it was good to have the company of like-minded people again to distract him. As they trudged on through the rain-soaked jungle, David's thoughts turned to the village of shadows and the challenges that lay ahead. But he was confident that with the help of this team, they would be able to reach the people of the village with the message of the gospel. With renewed energy, David pushed forward, leading the team deeper into the heart of the jungle. David and the team trudged through the jungle, the raindrops growing heavier with each step they took. They could feel the dampness seeping past rain jacket zips and buttonholes, into their clothes, their hair sticking to their faces as the water flowed down their skin. They clutched their bags tightly, making sure their supplies wouldn't get wet. Suddenly, the sound of rushing water filled their ears. David's head snapped up, and he saw a wall of water heading straight towards them. He shouted a warning to the team, and they all tried to run, but the water was too fast. It hit them with such force that it knocked them off their feet, sending them tumbling down the hill. David tried to grab onto a tree branch, but the water was too strong. It pulled him under, and he felt himself being swept away. He saw the other team members being thrown around like rag dolls, their cries for help lost in the roar of the water. David kicked his legs, trying to reach the surface, but it felt like he was being sucked down into a black void. He suddenly felt a hand grab his arm, pulling him up. He gasped for air, his eyes focusing on Ryan, who had somehow managed to reach him. Together, they clung to a tree trunk, watching as the flash flood raged around them. David felt a glimmer of hope, knowing that they were in this together, and would make it out alive. As the water slowly receded, David and Ryan's clothes were soaked and their spirits dampened. Ryan's brow furrowed with worry. "We need to find Sarah, Peter, and Lauren. They're still out here somewhere." David nodded and they set out, searching through the jungle in the direction of the flash floodwater, calling out their names. After what felt like hours, they heard a faint response. They followed the sound until they stumbled upon the missing team members, all of them soaked to the bone and shivering. "Thank goodness you're here," Sarah said, her teeth chattering. "We got caught in the flash flood and it swept us away." Peter and Sarah were able to walk on their own with a few bruises and cuts, but Lauren was lying on the ground, unconscious. Ryan knelt down beside her and checked for a pulse. It was weak, but it was there. "We need to get her breathing again," Ryan said. "Does anyone here know CPR?" David stepped forward. "I do." The team worked together to revive Lauren, with David performing CPR and the rest of them keeping watch and providing support. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lauren coughed and her eyes fluttered open. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief and hugged one another, grateful to have found each other and to have been able to help. They knew they still had a long journey ahead of them, but for now, they were just glad to be alive and together. They pressed on, driven by their determination to reach their destination and continue their mission of spreading the gospel. They knew that they had just experienced a small taste of the challenges that lay ahead, but they were ready to face them with bravery and faith. As the team trudged through the jungle, the rain continued to pour down. David could see drooping faces among the young teachers and translators. "We need a break." Suddenly, they stumbled upon a small clearing in the jungle. "Let's set up camp here," David suggested. He looking up at the dark skies. "We can't keep going in this rain. It's getting too dark to see the path ahead. We can set up our tents here and try to get some rest. At least it will offer us some relief from the rain." Ryan nodded, relieved at the thought of a dry place to sleep. The group quickly set up their tents, trying to shield themselves from the rain as much as possible. They were unable to light a fire due to the rain, but they huddled together in their tents, sharing stories and trying to make the best of the situation. "It's too bad we can't start a fire," Ryan said, shivering. "It would have been nice to warm up a bit." David replied, offering Ryan a warm smile. "But we'll be okay. We have each other and our faith to keep us warm." As they settled into their tents, the rain continued to pour down, but they were grateful to have found shelter from the storm. They closed their eyes and drifted off to sleep, ready to continue their journey in the morning. In the morning, the team woke up to a break in the rain. The sun was shining, and there was a hint of blue sky visible in the distance. The ground was still wet, but the heavy rain had stopped, giving them a chance to dry their clothes and gear. David took charge and started a small fire using dry leaves and twigs he had found by chance in a hollowed-out log on higher ground that had somehow not been touched by the deluge. He thanked God quietly for it. Then, he placed the clothes and gear close to the fire to dry. The teachers and translator joined in, each doing their part. Ryan started boiling water for coffee while Sarah and Peter went to gather more firewood. Lauren, who had been more injured in the flash flood, was still recovering, but she was sitting up and taking in the sights and sounds of the jungle. As they sat by the fire, drinking their coffee and munching on crackers, David began to explain their plan for the day. They would continue on the trail, making their way through the jungle toward the valley, where they hoped to find the Jingra village. With their spirits lifted, the team packed up their gear and set out on the trail, once again ready for the journey ahead. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and they were making progress. The small break in the rain had been a much-needed boost to their spirits and energy levels. After lunch, the sky soon turned dark and the rain began to pelt down. It started as a light patter, like delicate fingers tapping on the leaves of the jungle. But it quickly became a loud drumming, pounding on the ground with relentless intensity against the leaves and branches of the trees, creating a symphony of sound that was almost deafening. The team huddled together, trying to keep each other dry as they trudged through the now flooded jungle floor. The rain was relentless, coming down in cups and bottles, making it difficult to see more than a few feet in front of them. The raindrops were like bullets, shooting from the sky and pocking the earth with their sharp points. The sky was a deep shade of pale horse gray, covering the entire world like foil over a humid roast. The clouds looked like an army of storm soldiers, marching forward to unleash their fight upon the earth. The team tried to keep their spirits up, but the constant rain was starting to wear them down. The jungle was transformed into a deluge, a swirling vortex of water and wind. The team huddled together under the meager protection of the jungle canopy, watching in awe as the rain battered the jungle with a fury that seemed to have no end, a crescendo of rainfall and thunder that echoed through the jungle. David suggested they find some shelter, but the jungle offered little respite from the downpour. They pushed on, determined to reach their destination, but the rain continued to batter them, making every step a struggle. They were tiny, insignificant creatures in the face of this raw power, and they could only hope that they would weather the storm. John now stood in the center of a small Mangari village hut, surrounded by eager villagers as he taught them about the Bible. The rain poured down from the dark skies outside, pummeling the thatched roofs of the huts and creating a dramatic background noise for John's lesson. Kofi and Alyamide sat on a mat inside one of the huts, intently listening to John's teachings. "The Bible is like a treasure map," John said, using his hands to illustrate his point. "It leads us to the most precious treasure of all, salvation through Jesus Christ." The villagers nodded in agreement, their eyes shining with excitement as they learned more about their faith. Meanwhile, Dr. James and Susan continued to help other villagers with their medical needs. In a makeshift clinic, patients were crowding inside, seeking relief from the sky and their various ailments. As the rain continued to pour down, the Mangari villagers were grateful for the presence of the Bible teachers and medical help. They felt blessed to be growing in their understanding of the gospel and to have people who cared for their physical well-being. It was clear that the love and kindness shown by John, Kofi, Alyamide, Dr. James and Susan were making a real difference in the lives of the villagers. David's thoughts were like the pulling of saltwater taffy, this way and that, as he trudged through the rain-infested jungle. He knew that they were close to the temple, that place that had been shrouded in mystery for centuries. It could easily offer refuge from the elements. At least he hoped it would provide the relief from the rain that the team so desperately needed. He knew that if they could just reach it, they would finally be able to escape the unrelenting downpour. David led the team toward what he hoped would be like a dry Shangri-La. David and the team finally arrived at the temple, and David led the way, his flashlight illuminating the dark and musty chamber. The sound of the rain was still audible, but it was muted, like the whisper of the jungle. The team was relieved to be somewhere dry, where they could escape the relentless downpour, and they eagerly explored the chamber. Despite the musty scent and the darkness, the team was excited, eager to learn more about the temple's history. David could hear their questions and the sound of dripping water somewhere in the temple. Should I tell these newbies about the hidden treasure chamber? But, the old greedy demon still held on, its hidden invisible claws and evil whispers goading him away from such ideas. No. I'll show them the dark passage that will get us closer to the Mangari underground. At least we'll be out of the rain for a bit. Just a bit of relief for now. David stood in the musty chamber of the temple, listening to the sound of the rain pounding against the stone walls. He looked around at the faces of Ryan, Mary, Peter, and Lauren, all of whom were trying to catch their breath after the journey to this place. The chamber was empty and dark, but the sound of dripping echoed somewhere, making them feel like they shared the space with something. David cleared his throat and addressed the group. "We have a choice to make," he said. "We can head to the underground cavern and follow the stream tunnel toward one of the tribal villages. Or we can go back out in the rain and make our way to the Mangari." David paused. "I've been both ways before, so I'm personally not too fussed either way." Ryan nodded, considering both options. "It sounds like the tunnel would be good for now," he said. Mary shook her head, quick to express her concerns. "Not fun in the dark. You lose your light down here, how do you get it back? I don't want to risk getting trapped in the underground cavern. We don't know how stable it is. What if the monsoon rains cause it to collapse?" she asked. Her voice had trembled slightly with worry. David nodded. "I get it, guys. But the stream tunnel is the quickest route to the Mangari. And if we're lucky, we might stay dry all the way until we have to get out through the stream." David paused and shot a purposeful glance in Mary's direction. "The main caves also are filled with glow bugs. They're pretty incredible," he said. Mary relaxed just enough to smile back. Peter and Lauren listened intently, weighing their options. "I'd like a break from the rain," Peter said. "Furthermore, the glow bugs sound pretty cool as." Lauren nodded in agreement. "Yeah, I'd like to see that. I've heard of something similar back home, but I've never gotten around to checking it out. That, and I'd rather be more dry than wet for a bit, even if it means being in an underground cavern. Long as it's not too claustrophobic. I'm happy for you to decide," Peter said. The others nodded in agreement, although Mary and Lauren nodded a bit more slowly. David stared into space for a few seconds. Nobody else spoke. His mind flashed back suddenly quite darkly to the giant. His last tour down here hadn't led to anything else of concern, but there were plenty of other tunnels to explore, and who exactly knew what could be down them? Still, I think we'll be alright. I hope we'll be alright. God, help me make the best decision. "Okay then," David said. "We'll head to the underground cavern. But we stay vigilant. Stay alert for any signs of flash flooding. And anything else." But David did not want to scare anyone, especially the women. With that, the team set out toward the dark passage, ready to face whatever lay ahead in the underground cavern.